and she grabbed my love handles and she said, if you don't lose weight, I'm going to put you on a diet at 11 years old.
Wow. Yeah.
And, I just remember it being this moment of like the shame and the embarrassment and the guilt and the sadness that I felt. It was just, that's how your parent sees you, is like, you have to fit into this box. And yeah, and it literally, like a switch, that was it.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rapid Ascent podcast. My name's Jeremy, and our guest today is a very inspirational woman, Sophie Geraghty. She was an ambassador for the Surf Coast Century that just happened this Saturday, and she's got an incredible story to tell. She grew up in a turbulent family, two alcoholic parents, eating disorder that lasted the span of 2+ decades. And instead of letting that define her and becoming the victim to those things, she chose to choose running as a rebellion, as she says. And she's essentially run herself out of that life that she once had into a new life where now she has a lovely family up in Sydney. She's got 2 kids, she's got 2 businesses, and she's a fierce advocate for getting more women, and particularly teenagers, into sport and into trail running. She's an amazing coach, she's an amazing storyteller, and she's determined to show that you don't need the right background, the perfect body, or fancy gear to belong. You just need to find a reason to keep showing up. So we had a great chat, and we'll get into it right now. So please welcome Sophie Geraghty. I suppose the first question to kick things off, what stood out on your application to be an ambassador for Surf Coast Century was the phrase, running became my rebellion.
Mm.
And I'm just curious about your thoughts around that. When did running become something more meaningful than just exercise? How has it shown up in your life?
I think it was not necessarily. I don't think it's ever, in something like this, it's never one particular defining moment, right? Like you don't have that light bulb moment on the top of a mountain somewhere and go, oh my God, this is what running means to me. But I do remember as a teenager, before I was running, before exercise was a part of my life, having had the kind of the history and the childhood that I did, I do remember having those moments where I would be at home and living in an environment where you didn't feel safe. You kind of never knew what was coming in the front door, or what you were going downstairs to, or what you were going to hear at night, and all those kind of things. And then I went to boarding school. So my dad was in the Air Force back in the UK. And so you get funding in the military to send your children to boarding school to have that consistency of an education. And I think that in itself was a really pivotal opportunity for me, because it got me out of the environment that I had been living in, obviously, for my whole life up until that point. And it meant that I got a taste of what other people had in their life. So for me, that was totally normal. And it wasn't until I was, maybe kind of 13, 14, and I'd start to go to friends' houses at the weekends, and they'd all sit down for a family dinner together, and they'd all have a conversation, and everything didn't revolve around alcohol and go and get me a wine, or people coming in to party or whatever, and then arguments ensuing, or kids being sent away, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, and so it was when I was able to then kind of compare and contrast and go, oh, maybe this isn't normal, and I want that. Like that's a bit more of what I want with my life. And then I think kind of slowly tapping into realizing that, where that sphere of influence was coming from was a much stronger pull towards something, slightly healthier and more balanced, and more regulated emotionally. And seeing the support that my friends would get from their parents when it came to subject choices at school, or what they wanted to go and do at university, and all that kind of stuff. And then when the exercise kind of came in, and I, realized, how kind of good that would make me feel, and things like that. This is obviously kind of many years later. And I do remember one really vivid conversation where I think I'd signed up maybe to my first 50K or something. And, this was not that many years ago. And telling my parents, telling my mum or my dad over the phone and saying, I'm going to run this race. And they just went, why?
Yeah.
I went, okay, cool. And so I don't think I've told them one thing that I've kind of done since, after that experience. And it just kind of made me realize that I had this choice. And um this wasn't supposed to be my life. Like, I think, if you kind of look at what the kind of pathway should have been in terms of the statistics of following in your parents' footsteps and that kind of intergenerational trauma and stuff, then it should have been something very, very different. And so that's what I meant with the term rebellion, is I do kind of feel like I have really rebelled against this, predefined, just there is no such thing as predefined. You get to build your own life, you get to make your own choices. And there's so much power in every scenario. Everybody has a choice, whether you're in a position to make that choice at the time or not. And that's kind of, I'm a rebel. Rebel without a cause.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, especially that pushing back against your parents, who are intrinsically so much part of your makeup, whether you like it or not. And for them to say,
absolutely,
why? And you saying, I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah,
it is a rebellion. It's cool. And so, how does running? Like, what role does running have in your life? How much are you running? How much of that is part of? Like, how much are you gripping onto running as almost a vice, I suppose, as a rebellion, as part of your identity, and how much of it is like, talk me through your relationship with running at the moment.
So it started, to be completely honest, it started probably not as the healthiest kind of crutch or choice. My relationship with exercise in general started through a disordered eating relationship with food, and the constant strive for the flat stomach, the thigh gap, and starting at age 11,
Wow.
through a very I guess a traumatic experience with my mum, where I'd come home from boarding school, and again, like, you kind of remember these things vividly, everything about it from a sensory and visual perspective. And I remember my mum coming up behind me and grabbing my love handles, and I was, I probably had that little bit of puppy fat as a preteen, and she grabbed my love handles and she said, if you don't lose weight, I'm going to put you on a diet.
At 11.
At 11 years old.
Wow. Yeah.
And I just remember it being this moment of like the shame and the embarrassment and the guilt and the sadness that I felt. It was just, that's how your parent sees you, is like, you have to fit into this box. And it literally, like a switch, that was it. And so when I started, I guess, exercising, it literally started with a Jerry Halliwell, who is Ginger Spice. Jerry Halliwell, after she left the Spice Girls, she went on to become, a bit of a fitness guru, and she released a whole bunch of like yoga DVDs. And I remember going, oh, if Jerry Halliwell can look like that and do yoga, then that must be the answer. And it, kind of snowballed from there. And so running for me back then was very much a weight loss tool.
Right, so you didn't start running that early, did you?
This was probably not at the age of 11, but that was very much a control, like calorie control, so restricted eating, and then as I kind of got older, more into my kind of later teens, it was a bit of a binge purge roller coaster, because I think it was, back then you were either anorexic or you were bulimic, and that was it. There was no, this whole spectrum of disordered eating, which has changed a lot now, it was literally, you were kind of one or the other. So even then, I knew what I was doing was, there was, I almost don't want to even talk about some of these things in some ways, because I don't want to fuel some people's fire in a way. But back then there was, when the internet was very new in its little world, was, there was lots of like pro anorexia websites. I don't know if they still exist, and please don't go and find them.
You can probably find.
But they were like the very basic, like chat chat groups,
Yeah.
kind of MSN Messenger kind of style things. And, it was all about, girls encouraging each other, not to eat for
Mm-hmm.
days on end. And, it was obviously incredibly unhealthy physically and emotionally and psychologically. And
Mm.
so I kind of duck into these every now and then when I was at school and I could use a school computer. And then when I left school and then went to university, and you have that little bit more freedom and independence to, really let loose because no one's, kind of
Mm.
looking at you and kind of monitoring anything. um the running thing didn't really start until after I left uni.
Mm-hmm.
And it was supposed to be very much, it was a punishment, like, it was a way of punishing my body and
Wow.
punishing myself for eating, and for, what I'd eaten or how often I'd eaten, or,
Mm-hmm.
and, anything like that. And then when I moved here, and it started to become like I think I entered one of my first events was like a city to surf or something over
Mm-hmm.
here. And I lived, by the beach, and I could get up at sunrise, and I could, you got to watch the sunrise over the ocean, and it was just this like magical environment. And, there was still that undercurrent, that it almost became a fear of, I can't not run
Mm.
because it's, probably became a bit of an obsessive thing. And being a photographer, and then was trying to kind of, I wanted to photograph the sunrise, but if I want to photograph the sunrise, that means I can't run in the morning.
Ah,
And, and I've juggled
yeah.
work, and, so there was a lot of conflict, um, in my mind. And this was, pre-watch days, pre kind of nutrition plans and fueling, and,
Mm.
grams of carbs per kilo of body weight. This was just, you look at the clock on the wall, and then you go out for a run, and you come back and you look at the clock and figure out how long you've been. Um, so, running, on empty stomachs,
Yeah.
every single time. But I think when I kind of really hit the trails, and I started to experience that level of freedom and connection to the place that I was running,
Mm-hmm.
and, where I got to be. And I started to realize, through probably through injuries, and then not being able to run, and so not having that, then you start to realize what a privilege it is. And it's normally when you lose something, that's when you realize what you had, and,
Mm-hmm.
all those kind of things. But yeah, I think getting into the trails was the thing that really made me go, I get to do this. Like, I get to see these places. I have a
Yeah.
body that works, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have a body that allows me to do this. Am I really going to sacrifice my health and the opportunity to see these places and be in these places and have this impact on other people,
Mm.
purely for centimeters around my waist, or,
It's fascinating. I reckon. Well, I'd be curious to know how much endurance sport and eating disorders and body image issues overlap, because I think it's very
Mm-hmm.
much. I can definitely relate to it. The cycling in
Yep.
the early days was
Yeah.
go faster, don't eat. If you eat, you're putting on weight. Weight is
Yep.
bad. You know,
Did you experience that from like a coaching perspective?
No, it was more just watching the pros, seeing what the pros look like,
Yep. Yep.
understanding that when I am a bit leaner, I am faster up hills. So
Yep.
it's sort of you do get payoff for being
Mm-hmm.
skinny, and then all of a sudden you're counting calories and you're beating yourself up if you're eating X foods, or I think it's a
Yep.
really incestuous slippery slope, and I think there's a lot
Oh,
of crossover with endurance sport.
absolutely.
So
Yep.
it's fascinating to hear that sort of got you into endurance sport, and then you hit the trails, and it sort of becomes
Mm,
this more, I guess, a positive influence in your life by the sound of things.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, massively. And I think it's something that, exactly to your point. You always have this opportunity to go down the dark path, right? Like, our brains are wired to compare
Yeah.
ourselves to other people. Like, that's the nature of the beast, right? And things like social media, and the amount of content that's out there, especially from a like, when you look at a race websites and events websites and stuff like that, you're picking the photos that you're picking to promote that race,
Yeah.
tell a certain story, and you're in control of that branding and that marketing and that story. And it's how you use those images to attract other runners, other riders, whatever it is. And so there's so much power in that, but then that has um, such a strong impact on people's decision as to whether they sign up to that race or not, because I don't
Yeah.
look like that person on
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
website. I've photographed for Ironman, and they're very prescriptive about the types of imagery that they want because of how they promote their races.
Yeah.
And I've worked with companies whose races I've gone and done, and then they've contacted me afterwards to go and, how did you find it? What were the pinch points? How do we get more women to sign up to these events?
Yeah.
And you can take a look at their websites and go, well, your website looks like Boyville. Like, no
Yeah.
offense,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's very nice, it's very pretty, but I don't see one picture of a woman on there, or whatever it is.
All the women you
So
do see are elite,
yeah,
potentially not as healthy as they should be. I don't know. They elite
well,
specimens
they
who
paint a
have their
picture.
six packs and their
Absolutely. And they paint a picture of, absolute dedication, like, especially if you look into kind of, say, like the triathlon world, and you've got everyone in their little, 2XU tri suits, and,
yeah,
they look amazing.
yeah.
And, something like a triathlon, for example, is obviously, it's a very dedicated sport. It's a very A-type personality.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, it does attract those very kind of compulsive, addictive personalities of people that dedicate their whole lives to it, because they're training for 3 disciplines, and that's huge. And it's incredibly impressive. And when you are an elite, and maybe you don't have to work, and you've got sponsors, and you can get up and spend 9 hours a day training across those 3 disciplines, you're going to look like that. But that's not the norm, and that's also not the majority of the people who enter those races, right? Like, the bread and butter for any events company is it's my friends, it's the dads,
Yeah.
and so why are we not showing people on the social media? Why are we not, clapping the middle of the pack people over the line? When you're doing your announcements, why is it only first, second, and third male, female places? And
Yeah.
especially from the female places, there have been events that I, watch and track and stuff that haven't even announced female places.
Yeah, that's horrible. Yeah.
And because they didn't come first, second, or third, So,
Yeah.
it's so much about, like, the body image stuff is huge. And I think my experience has been very personal, but in terms of, it started very young, and trail running and these kind of events, and becoming a parent, and becoming a mum of boys as well. And I see the role that men need to play in that journey as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's definitely inspired me to kind of talk about my story, and to kind of find that, the kind of, I guess, the bravery to have those conversations, and to be really open about it, because I know it's not just me. I know I'm not the only one that has experienced it, whether it's to the level that I was. There will be people that have been, that and still are, kind of much more unwell than I ever was, and have lots of horrendous health implications because of it, both from a skeletal perspective, but internal organs, and organ failure, and all sorts of horrible stuff. And I'm very lucky that trail and these events, and I guess the mindset of my choices, has led me to a point where I'm like, trail was actually one of the things that healed me.
Wow. Yeah.
And that has given me the kind of the life and the outlook that I have now.
That's really cool. And do you worry that it's healed you to this point, but it's also still got the capacity to become unhealthy? Like anything
100%.
extreme, like ultra running is an extreme discipline.
100%.
And you've run up to 240 k's, which I'm keen to hear more about. Was that a race? What was that?
Pardon?
Was that a race?
Yeah, Coast to Cozzy.
Coast to Cozzy. Wow, that's huge. So I mean, with anything that extreme, there's the danger of it becoming
An obsession.
an obsession, a
Yep.
dangerous pursuit,
Yep.
a negative influence on your life. I think we're always playing with this sort of balance as
Absolutely.
endurance
Yeah.
athletes. I won't call myself an athlete, but
You
endurance
are an athlete.
dedicated or interested people. It's a danger. So
Yeah.
how does your background and your relationship with running and the trails and body image, how does that guide
Mm.
your coaching philosophy? And obviously your big interest in getting more female participation in
Yeah,
Oxford.
absolutely. Look, I think first of all, it's always something that I'm conscious of. So one of the I guess one of the biggest understanding around eating disorders is that it's not really anything that is going to be 100% cured, and there's never going to be another thought in your brain.
Mm,
And one of the things that I have taught myself, because I didn't go into any kind of form of therapy for it. I've seen counselors and seen psychologists for the mental health side of I guess the eating disorder and the childhood stuff with anxiety and kind of incidents, kind of I guess times of mild depression, but I've never specifically tackled the eating disorder through formal therapy. So what I have always been very big on, and when I've mentored other young women who have been suffering with eating disorders, is to help them understand that this is not something that's ever going to go away. But what
mm,
you can do is develop a set of tools that are both personal and based on the relationships that you have around you to help keep you on track, like anything else in life, right? Like you can, if you are a runner or a cyclist or whatever, and you go through moments where you're like, oh, I don't have any motivation to get up and go for a run and go for training. Motivation is not something that sticks around day in and day out and is always the same. It wavers, and most
mm.
of the time our motivation is, especially in the winter and when we've had the kind of weather that we've been having recently, it's like I'm not motivated to get up and go for a run in the pissing rain and sideways winds with trees coming at me and
What's
whatever else.
wrong with you?
That's not motivating. I don't live
Yeah.
on the surf coast. Um, and I moved to Australia thinking it was always going to be sunny and lovely and warm. So yeah, it's not a motivation, but it becomes a non-negotiable, right? Like,
Mm,
and that's the benefit I think of having a coach as well, is that level of, having that level of accountability when you are kind of wavering slightly, and whether it's like, oh, I just keep pushing back my run, and it's I can still fit it in now. No, if I go now I can do half an hour, and if I go now I've got 25 minutes. So it become like that tool set is the same application, whether it's whether it's healing from an eating disorder and wanting to live a normal life. So
mhm.
eating becomes a non-negotiable, and so if it's if it's a snack, or if it's like I need to eat some fruit today or whatever it is, it's that same mentality of I've got these tools, and I am very lucky that I have relationships around me that I through therapy and time, I have become a much more open person, and I have allowed myself to be vulnerable and share that side of my past. And so I have, a husband who will say to me, "You're looking like you've lost some weight," or "You are,"
Yeah.
I've got friends that will sit me down and be like, "Sophie, we need to have
Mm.
a conversation. We're worried about you." And that happens, and it's a horrible thing, because you're like, you can kind of, your brain wants to trick you and go, no, you're fine, and it's fine to, maybe we won't eat until 3 o'clock today, or there are those
Is it a
bargaining
conscious
chips.
thing? Like, I'm not going to eat for, like, what's the reason? Or is it just oh, I forgot lunch sort of thing?
Yeah, look, I think having had the relationship I've had with food for as long as I have,
Mhm.
I can honestly say, to this day, like the days that I have gotten up and eaten breakfast are so few and far between. Like
Yeah.
I'm not a breakfast person, and there is a part of that my body has just kind of trained itself that I'm not hungry when I wake up in the morning.
Mhm.
And like I look at my son who's 13, and the thought of him not eating breakfast, like within 45 seconds of him waking up, he's like, "What do you mean?" Um, and that's just what my body
Yeah.
does. But I do find that food is very often the last thing on my mind, and I'm a busy
Mm-hmm.
person. I'm a photographer. I can be on a shoot for 14 hours, and I don't put myself and my needs first in terms of, hey guys, like I probably need to stop and eat something.
Mm.
So it becomes this, again, this non-negotiable of, okay, on this shoot, I know that I'm going from this place to this place in the car, so I'm going to have a bag of nuts that I keep in the car, and I have to eat something. And it's a bit like being in an ultra, right? Like I know I'm coming into this aid station, and I know that I've got this fuel that's in my bag. And so when I get into this aid station, this is the stuff in my drop bag that I'm going to eat at this point. And when it comes to, say, like how I coach the athletes that I coach, it's, you realize, you'd be the same. Like, when you feel good in a run, and when you feel really, really bad in a run. And most of the time there's a solution to that problem. And it probably comes down to some kind of fuel, nutrition or hydration. So it's always a really interesting conversation with the people that you coach, depending on the level of experience they have and what they're training for. And it's very much on a, needs by needs basis. And I will have, when I'm looking at bringing somebody on as an athlete and I'm having some of those conversations, one of the questions and one of the topics I will bring up is, has this ever been an issue for you? Because you don't know someone's past, and that's the difference between having a coach who is a physical, actual human being and using an AI platform. Now, I think the AI platforms have their place, 100%. But AI doesn't know, yes, I had an eating disorder for 20 years, and yes, this is what I had for breakfast, and I'm underfueled, or I ate the wrong thing last night, or whatever. So I think it's a really important question that we do ask our athletes, is, for that history. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a big in-depth conversation, because they may not be comfortable sharing that. And I think moving into that kind of female participation in sport, I think it's something that comes back to the vision of what we see when we're on, when we're looking at races and using social media. And it's tying that relationship together between, anyone can go and do this. It doesn't matter what the distance is. It doesn't matter, what your physical health has been like. If you're on a health journey, if weight loss is part of your health journey for health reasons, and it's all about and I think knowledge is power. Understanding why your body needs this fuel. What does the glucose do? What's the protein doing in your body? What's the importance of salt and water? What happens when you have that edema in your body and you don't have enough salt and you've got too much water, or vice versa. So I think the more conversations we can have about this kind of stuff, the wider the reach, right? And we slowly kind of chip away at people, and then everyone's trail running, and how great would that be for the whole universe?
Amazing. I think
that's the solution.
I often think that the world would be better if more people ran or did endurance sport, and in a way it's a 100%. Concentrated dose of life. So endurance sport, nutrition specifically, teaches you, as you were saying, exactly what your body needs when it's working, and that can be extended out to when it's not working. You just need slightly 100%. Less, and you sort of learn what the fuel is for, and what's adequate fueling, what's under fueling. That's interesting. So let's move on to female participation, because that's not the whole topic of this thing. But I think bodybuilding is so interlinked with all these issues, specifically, especially women in sport. So why do you think that more women should get involved in sport and trail running, especially teenagers? You said to me the other day, teenagers where there's a big drop off and.
Yeah. Absolutely. So when teenage girls hit high school, there's a massive decline. And obviously, depending on what kind of research you look at, it kind of ranges, anywhere up to about 40% drop off in that kind of 11 to 13, 12 to 16 kind of age range. And that's both across community sport. So, your local soccer team, local netball team, local footy teams, and as well into kind of school sport as well. Obviously, for private schools, there's that kind of mandatory participation in some of those, which is great. She says with a question mark,
Yeah.
because I think it really team sports not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you have, like, when I look at how I was and how I still am, like the idea of playing on a team, I don't look at it and go, oh God, how good would it be to play footy with my mates and go and enjoy, kicking a ball around and whatever else. I
Yeah.
love spending time with my mates. I love going for a run with my friends.
Yeah.
But the idea of not performing to the right level and letting my team down terrifies me. And
Interesting.
that was, more exaggerated as as a child. So I think when you put that pressure on people, or when you don't give them the facility to find the thing that they love,
Mm-hmm.
and help them understand that sport and exercise is so much more than just mandatory participation, and it's good for your body and good for your heart, that it can really open up this really kind of powerful journey for young girls, especially who, when we look at during COVID, the drop off rate of girls going back to sport was, I can't even remember what the statistics are, so I'm not even going to try and pretend like I remember.
Mm.
But it was huge. And even coming down to things like the sports uniform that they had to wear.
Yeah.
Why are we asking um, preteen and young teenage girls who are just starting their menstrual cycles and things are really, up and down and irregular, why are we asking them to wear white tennis shorts when they don't know if they're going to go to school and get their period that day?
Mm.
And so of course they don't want to join in because it doesn't feel comfortable. They feel very insecure.
Mm-hmm.
And so the most natural thing to do is to back away from it and to push away and reject
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done across the board around helping girls find something that they love, and allowing them and supporting them and encouraging them and creating a community around that for it to be something that they love and they get to do and it's just for them. And it doesn't have to be something that somebody's watching like if and this is obviously not, I'm not talking about those high performance athletes and the division 1 players and the kids that are making it through to zone and regionals and state for cross country and athletics and stuff. Like, that's a different level, and that's incredible. There's still support that needs to
Yeah.
happen around that from an athlete well-being perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another focus of something I want to go and save the world. But I think for that general population, and the kind of the everyday sports person, why do we not want our children to find something that they just love, that's not about performance?
Mm.
It's not about
Mm.
how fast you can run or how many goals you can score or how many runs you can get or whatever. It's, or how many backflips you can do if it's something like gymnastics or parkour or whatever. But it's like, hey, let's show you what it's like to be able to come home from school and maybe stuff's not going great in the playground, or you're all teenagers and you're all narky at each other,
Mm-hmm.
and you just get to put some runners on and go and run around the block for 10 minutes, and
Yeah.
you get that endorphin release, you get to shake it off, it's just for you, there's nobody watching you, and you can do it in the cover of darkness if you want, if it's safe. And you come back and you feel really good, and you put your phone away and you haven't had to worry about who's messaging who on Snapchat or whatever, and it's just yours. There's no
Yeah.
judgment, there's no nothing. And if that's a tool that we can teach these girls and boys at that kind of age group, that really tentative age, that's a tool for life.
Mm.
Like, imagine, I look back at myself. Were you a sporty kid when you were growing up? Were you
Well,
like in
I
all the
suppose a little bit
sports?
similar to you. I was actually in a circus growing up, so that's a whole other story. So definitely using.
Sorry, why are we talking about me?
I shouldn't have brought that up. I was in a circus for a number of years. Traveled the world, yeah, in the fruit fly circus, and that was very much using physicality as an art
Yeah,
form, I suppose, rather than a competitive
yeah,
sport. So there's some parallels there. And then when I moved back to mainstream school, got into endurance sport. So
Mm.
my dad was right into all cycling and running and everything, and that became an obsession. But it was always
Yeah.
about performance. It was always
Yeah.
about going faster,
Yeah.
uh, which I think is quite a male thing, or for female as well. But I think that your distinction there between competition and the joy of physicality
Yeah.
is an interesting one. And it's sort of like, is it sport or is it exercise, or is it, how we define that
Yeah. Yeah. And
for
then what do
young
you
women?
define as sport?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think I guess the point of asking you that question is like, whatever your experience with sport, whether it was zero or being in a circus, which by the way, we're coming back to,
Okay.
um, and and looking more at that performance, high end development, kind of pathway. But if you'd have had the opportunity to just go, hey, just go for a bike ride, like just for the fun of it. You're not wearing a watch. I'm not
Hmm.
timing you. It's not about how high you made that jump or how fast you did that downhill or whatever it is. It's just to go and have fun. And then
Hmm.
that's something that you understand in your life. And that's something that now, as an adult, you get to go, oh, do you know what? I've had a really rubbish day at work. This happened, or I've had an argument with this person or whatever. I know the thing that's going to make me feel better. And I know the thing that's going to give me the space to just kind of go and process it. And, I know I always find that there's kind of two schools of people of like when they go for a run or whatever, that's their time to process and solve all their problems.
Hmm.
And then for other people, it's a time to just completely switch off. And
Yeah.
both are
Yeah.
right. I don't think,
Hmm.
I think both have that application. And so I just think if this is the gift that I can give to my kids or my kids' friends, or that I can help women now tap into, because it wasn't something that they had when they were growing up. And it's I think especially in Australia, having grown up in the UK, and now seeing that comparison with my kids in their school, we are very competitive sport orientated.
We are. Yeah.
um,
It's ingrained in the culture. It's yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like especially with the Brisbane Olympics and stuff, coming up,
Mm-hmm.
inside of a decade now. Like, I run around Narrabeen Lakes near me, and there's one of the athletic centres has got, big signs up about, do you have a child in this development pathway, and could
Yeah.
your child be the next Olympian? And and so it's very competitive driven. And I see it when I had a son who was playing under sixes soccer, and you hear the way coaches talk to kids and parents talk and yell at their kids on the sideline, and you're like, they've got their whole lives to be competitive.
So true. And you talk about running being a rebellion from your childhood. If that is
Mm,
your childhood, where you've got ultra competitive parents, they're on the sidelines, they're yelling at you, you've got to perform at all costs. You can see why you rebel the other way and go, you know what? I'm going to not be a sporty person. I'm going to
yeah.
go and sit on the couch and play video games because
Yep.
it's easier.
Absolutely. And I was on and I should probably ask his permission before I share this story, but a couple of seasons ago, so we're just at
Mm.
the end of winter sport now. Both my boys play AFL. My older one is in a development pathway. He's part of the Swans Academy.
Yeah, wow.
And he probably not maybe end of last season. So he would have been kind of 12 going on 13.
Mm-hmm.
My husband, who is a mad AFL fan and loves the game and loves watching Finn play, they were getting to the point where Finn would come off, and straight away it was the extra coaching, the feedback, the why
Yeah,
didn't you do this, and it
yeah,
got to the point where they were like that, and it the arguments, like they didn't talk to each other for like 3 hours one Sunday afternoon, because it was just the wrong time to deliver the feedback or have the
yeah,
conversation. They'd lost the game, whatever it was. And I remember kind of mediating between the two of them. And the thing that I wanted them both to understand is the reason that you both are reacting like this is because you're coming from two sides of the same coin. You both love the game.
mm,
And my kind of feedback and my kind of with my coaches hat on to my husband was, you need to be careful and realize that this age, Finn is changing. He's, there's hormones, the testosterone, the growth, the psychological development. He's becoming a teenager, and
mm.
that relationship that you have with him is going to change. And ultimately, all you want is a son that wants you to come and watch him play footy because you're his dad. He's got plenty of coaches in his life. He doesn't need another one. He needs a dad. And again, like I know from personal experience being in especially this kind of age group now as a parent, there are so many kids that will give up sport because of it, exactly to your point, because of that level of intensity that we're placing on these who are still children. Their brains are not developed enough. So when you put that level of pressure on them, not every kid is going to be the next Buddy Franklin, the next David Beckham, which shows my age. And nor should they want to be. Exactly. That's the 1% of the 1%. And I think, there's nothing wrong with being competitive in sport. I think it's incredible. And I have the most admiration for those athletes across any sport, apart from ones that you can hold a beer in, because then it's not a real sport. Is my personal opinion.
I like that distinction. You can hold a beer while you're riding a bike, or run. Talking about that pressure, parental and societal pressure during teenage years doing sport. Do you reckon that's equal across both genders or all genders, or do you think it's more of a? I suppose getting back to female participation, thinking out loud, I'm sort of thinking, well, they get that. Well, first of all, clothing. You have to wear a certain clothing that can be intimidating.
Yep.
There's also that conformity that we spoke about earlier. You want to conform with your peers. Maybe, I don't know, maybe females don't, they sort of gravitate towards not doing sports of societal norms, and male teenagers are more conforming to be sporty, to be athletic.
Yeah.
I don't know. Where do you think that, where's the difference there, do you think, between...
I think it's probably a mixture of like A, B, C, and D, like E, all of the above. I think and I will preface this by saying that I have boys and I wasn't a sporty girl. So my frame of reference is very much current lived, research and lived experience through, kind of friends and their girls. But I think there is definitely there's that divide between girls play netball, boys play soccer, and so there's definitely that divide there. I think there is...
might be changing. I'm not really... I don't have kids. I'm not in that scene, but I know AFLW is a big thing now. And
the Swans are doing amazing things with their AFLW and their academy pathway and stuff, and I'm sure other teams are as well. And it's definitely becoming a bigger thing. But I think it's a massive case of monkey see, monkey do. We don't have a lot of... I think it's almost like this generational hurdle that we're currently trying to get over, where if we weren't sporty as children, and so we didn't grow up in a sport, and so therefore we don't have the female coaches. So I didn't play AFL, I didn't play soccer, so how the hell am I going to coach that? So I'm not putting my hand up to coach the girls team. So you might end up with a male coach, which amazing, great, girls are getting out there and playing, but when you have a male coach, there's always going to be that barrier, especially at that age where boys are looking for mentors and girls are looking for mentors, and we need those really strong female mentors in their lives. And it's very much around the physical, the strategy, kind of, dare I say it, kind of slightly maybe old school coaching techniques, where it's all about performance and training. It's less about the emotional well-being of an athlete and of a team as well, because that's a really big part of it. And when we look at kind of bigger, wider professional sport, there's not that many women, on boards across sporting communities. I think I was at a event on Monday night, and I think there's something like 92 professional sports organizations across in Australia, and that's it's incredible. And so what's the female representation in senior positions across those companies? So we need to see it. Women are, very broadly speaking, and I know we're talking about some really massive generalizations here, but women on the whole need to see it to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to know in ourselves that we
Yeah.
can do something before we put our
Yeah.
name down to do it. So I
Yeah.
think that's one of the big barriers when it comes to signing up to, say, their first, whether it's a first 5K, half marathon,
Yeah.
ultra marathon,
Yeah.
cycling event, multi-day disciplinary event, whatever it is. We need to know we can do it. We have to have that absolute belief in ourselves. And men don't need that. When we talked about it the other day, when men are applying for a job, men will look at a job and have maybe like 2 or 3 of the KPIs or the experience requirements that a particular job is entering. Yep, cool, I can do that. And they'll apply for it. Yeah, sounds great. Sign me up.
Yeah.
Put me in, coach. Whereas women need to have like every single one of them. So if we haven't had 7 years experience and we haven't done this, that, and the other and led this type of team and have experience with this software or worked in this particular industry, we don't apply for those jobs. And so I think it's very similar especially when you look at ultras and, trail events and, you're going off to Alice to do Run Larapinta very soon.
Yeah, Friday.
Yeah. So, that's a hugely intimidating prospect to someone that's never run on a trail before.
Yeah.
Go to Alice Springs and go and run the Larapinta Trail over 4 days, right? Sounds great. I've met guys I remember doing, was it my first or my second UTA 100? I can't remember what it was. And I caught up to this guy who was, I don't know, maybe like early mid-20s or something. And he was starting to struggle. And we were probably 65, 70 Ks into the event. And I don't know if you know UTA, but that back half is a lot of stairs. And it sucks the life out of you. And you could just see like his power, like going, power down. And I was chatting to him a bit about like, what's your longest run? Have you done UTA before? All those kind of things. Just trying to rally the troops a little bit. And he was like, oh yeah, I ran a marathon like 3 years ago. And that's been my longest. And I was like,
you see it all the time at our events. There's often that archetype of person. It's larrikin who sign up at the pub and he's like, yeah, I'll give it a crack, and he's there.
Mates have probably had a couple of beers.
Exactly. You don't see many females who are in that position. They've dotted their T's, or the other way around, dotted their I's, crossed their T's there.
Yep. They've done their
training.
Too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The nerves are real, regardless of whether they've done the event before or a similar event or a similar distance or longer or whatever. We show up very differently, and I think in some ways there's a side of me that goes, I don't necessarily think that there's anything that you can do about that apart from support it and talk about it and say, yeah, like 90% of the women standing on that start line feel exactly the same as you and have the same concerns of, what if I finish last? What if I don't finish? What if I have to DNF? I've done milers where I've got my period at 130 Ks into a race and been in an event where, the portaloos that they have at the aid stations don't have a sink, they have a urinal.
Wow.
And so I get my...
That's even for... I thought you'd say didn't have any products for you, but that's even...
No. So so then you look at it and you go, okay, cool. I can kind of... Is the logic that it speeds the process up, or it means the toilet is cleaner for women because men aren't going to pee on the seat? But now I'm in a position where I've been running for 130 Ks. I'm filthy. And I now have my period. So I brought my period products with me because I knew that this was a risk and I knew that this was something that I was, potentially going to happen for me in the race. So I was prepared. But I've now done what I need to do and clean myself up. But now I can't wash my hands. And sanitizer ain't going to cut it, So it's like it's things like that. So I think like in terms of in terms of what event companies can do, I think there's definitely a lot that we can that can change in terms of how we advertise races and the support and having those kind of facilities. And letting women know that it's okay and it's normal to be worried about what if I get my period, or and some people have really bad premenstrual symptoms of feeling really crap and feeling really flat and like you've got no energy, but it's not about coming first or coming 10th or coming X place or doing it X time. Like if you show up and you have got your period and you feel like crap and you're really worried that you're going to bleed through and, and all those
Mm-hmm.
kind of things, show up and perform to the best that you can perform on that day. Don't
And so,
have you.
sorry, just
There
playing
you
not
go.
devil's advocate, but just
No.
thinking out loud. Why is sport important? Like, why should we? Is it just physical health? Is it to
Mm.
show yourself what you're capable of and experience your body performing at its best? Is it? I mean, it's such a can of worms, isn't it? Like, why,
Yeah, yeah.
why, why is it so important to participate in sport or in
Okay.
exercise or in movement,
Yep.
physicality, or however you want to define it?
Okay, let's take out the it's good for your heart and your
Mm-hmm.
bone density and all that kind of stuff because everybody knows that. And if you don't, you're probably not listening to this.
Yeah, yeah.
um, and you should listen to this. If we live in a world that is very, very easy now. We all have stress
Mm-hmm.
in work, relationships, whatever. But in terms of access, having a roof over our head, having access to clean water, food, education, entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
etc., etc., it's pretty easy. We don't have to work that hard for any of that, right? Like through the world of one of these, I've got,
Yeah,
contact to anyone that I want at any time, cat videos galore, and Uber Eats at my fingertips, right?
it's crazy.
Um, and so what we have removed from our life is the idea of stressful growth because I don't think that that any one of us should be looking for a life that is completely stress free,
Mm-hmm.
because there's no growth and there's no development in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a just as a human being, take gender out of it. If I can sit there and go, as a pre runner, oh, I could never run 5Ks.
Mm.
Well, you can't with that attitude. And but if I can get myself moving and get out there and practice and train and chip away at it, and then I run 5Ks. And I've seen this with my friends. Like the first time I ran with my friend when she ran her first 5K nonstop, she
Mm.
didn't think she could do it. Like it was the hardest thing that she had done for a very, very long time.
Mm.
And, you know, and it wasn't fast and it wasn't pretty. And she was puffing and puffing and sweating bullets. And you could see how much she wanted to stop. And she got to the end and we both cried because that was
That's
such an
cool. Yeah.
achievement for her. Right. And they were like the most genuine, heartfelt tears. And then she went, oh, if I can do that, what else can I do? And it's not just if I can run 5Ks and maybe I can run 10Ks. How cool is that? It's if I can run 5Ks and I didn't think I could do it, maybe I can sign up, apply for that job that I didn't
Mm.
think I could get. Maybe I
Mm.
can work on this relationship that I feel like is going in a really bad direction. And I don't want to end up a single mom. That's not necessarily her. I'm just talking generally. Um, it teaches us to do hard things,
And it
and it
redefines what's possible, doesn't it? Like it's a
absolutely,
confidence building. If you do something that you thought was impossible, suddenly your
yeah,
whole paradigm changes and the world becomes a different
yep,
thing. I've had that
absolutely,
experience doing endurance before, and I've
yeah,
forgotten about it actually because it's so normal now to just do these things.
yeah,
So that's definitely important. It's like redefining its confidence. I think you put in your application that you found confidence and the joy of using your body
yeah.
to run is
Because we don't live a very mobile. The majority of us don't live a very mobile life. Like
no, no.
if I'm not on a shoot, I'm sat pretty much in this chair, editing away and on
Yes.
LinkedIn and
Yeah.
doing all the comms and all that kind of stuff. And some days, the only days that that my step count goes up is because I've gone out for my run. So,
Mm,
even in terms of that, that side of things, I think it's obviously it's really important and it can be a really powerful motivated just in our day-to-day lives. Like it
yeah.
can help revitalize us and it gets our blood moving and all that kind of stuff and it
Like you
gives
feel
us that.
better too. Like physically, you go
Yeah.
for a run, you like whatever, having your dinner afterwards, your legs are
Mm,
buzzing, you've got the endorphins, you feel better. It's
yep,
something deeply human about running. It's how we
absolutely.
evolved to move. So running in particular is important. But then to your point about the comfort crisis, which is a really good
Mm,
book you should read. But essentially, what you said about having Uber Eats on speed dial, your dopamine centers are flooded all the time.
Oh my God. Yep.
Endurance, like there's actually science to show. I don't know what science, but I'll be that guy who says
It is now.
There's studies out there. But no, happiness. You need the counterbalance. You need the comfort and the hardship. And if you have no hardship, this doesn't mean anything. This is empty.
Yep.
You lose all effect.
And you're constantly striving for this, like, I need to be happy all the time, because we do flood, we are flooded by, and this is a conversation I've had to have with my teenager, is, we are flooded by the social media, the YouTube, and, the science behind scrolling and the science behind these games that they play. They are, and I've said to both my boys, these games like Fortnite or Roblox or whatever it is that you're playing, they are not made by, game designers and stuff anymore. They are made in a science lab, and they are made specifically to activate the dopamine centers in your brain, because you are, they're, I've played Fortnite maybe 3 times in my life, but it is.
I've never seen it, but I've heard a lot about it.
But it is designed to be addictive. It is designed to give you that dopamine.
So is social media. So everything that's pointed at us. It's industrialized. Dopamine producing stimulus.
And the conversation that I have with with my kids and some of their friends, where it's an appropriate conversation to have, is that you live in a world that is so different to the way that even when I grew up, which was only 40 years ago, it's so different, and it has grown exponentially across every industry that touches your everyday life. That's not your fault, but it is your problem. And it's our responsibility as parents, and it's your responsibility as a human being that's going to grow up, to figure out how to have a relationship with all of these things. And whether that be, like I look at my pantry and the stuff that I put in my kids' lunch boxes and how different that is. And, going back to kind of the female participation, in these events, especially some of these bigger events, it's that kind of stuff is on your mind constantly, especially as a parent. When I was doing the last run that I did, I was over in WA for an event, and I was away for 5 days, I think it was, in the end. And I don't get to just pack my bags, get on a plane, go and do an event, go to a winery in WA. I don't drink anyway, and then come back. I have to think about, okay, this 5 days, the day that I leave, Finn's got AFL, he's got Swans Academy, he's got soccer training, he's got an AFL game, he's got soccer game, he's got AFL umpiring, he's got Peninsula Cup. It's like, and that's just one kid, right? And then there's the other kid. And so then it's, do I need to go shopping beforehand to make sure that there's enough food for lunch boxes and for everybody's dinners? And does Matt have something that he's going to? Okay, cool. So he's got this social thing. He's got a 50th that he's going to. So I've got to figure out, we've got to figure out where the kids are going, or who's going to look after the kids.
And you're not popping over for a fun run. It's a Cape to Cape. What's the distance of that run?
That was a miler. So, and that
was miler, yeah. So 160 Ks.
Yeah. And then during,
it's a proper event, and you're thinking about all this. It comes down to the topic of mental load, which I've got on my list to talk about, because it is a known phenomenon that mums, women, females, tend to take on the majority of the mental load at home. And so, sorry I interrupted you there, but how is that, when all that's running through your head and you're trying to prepare for a miler, how do you juggle that? What is does it make how often do you think, I might just not go running? Like, let's just scrap running.
Never. I never think I'm not going running.
Good. Yeah.
Because that's my get out of jail. Yeah, that's my get out of jail free card. But yeah, I've had the conversation so many times with other, kind of mum friends of like, I don't have the time for that. And again, as a coach, one of the conversations that I have with athletes that are looking to find a coach, and if I'm the right one for them and all that kind of stuff, is, who is your support person at home? Like, what's the family situation? Because I've coached single mums, I've coached, women who, aren't in relationships. I've coached dads with young kids that only have one car. So the weekend juggle to get out to a trail is really hard. it's something that you have to consider, and especially when it comes to the, those final few weeks and the lead up to an event, and you're trying to get your nutrition plan sorted and your mandatory gear sorted, and am I missing anything, and what do I need to take, and I'm sorting out my drop bags. Oh, but I've also got to do school drop off and school pickup. The mental load is huge. And I had a conversation with a guy that I coached for his first 100 at UTA this year, and it was taper, a couple of weeks of last week of taper. And I was like, the conversation I had with him was, I know how busy you are. Like, you've got a crazy job, everything's mental, you've got young girls, it's a lot. All I'm going to ask is it's an extra, whatever the extra 1% is that you can find to deload your mental load as well as your physical load, do that. And, I've said to some mums when they're tapering, if taper for you is having an extra 5 minutes in the shower to just, that's enough.
So do you have any sort of tangible strategies for that? Like, do you meditate or do you, I don't know, breath work, or like how do you reduce stress when you feel like every second of the day is jam packed with something? Yeah.
I think I'm very lucky that I have a husband who is supportive, and whether he wants to be or not. I think going back to when I first had Finn, who, like I said before, is now 13, I was diagnosed with PTSD about 18 months after I had him.
Wow.
Through childbirth. Through the stuff that I had in my application around alcoholic parents and abuse growing up.
So PTSD from childhood.
Yes, that kind of was triggered by a fairly traumatic childbirth and the treatment that I got afterwards. And it manifested in a way where I'd be sat on a couch. We had a newborn baby, all the way up to about 18 months old, and we'd be sat on the couch. Finn would be in bed asleep, and Matt would just like try and put his arm around me or try and hold my hand. And I was like, I can't even have you touch me. Like, the thought of anybody, because you've just got this small human that's just on you all the time and wants you, and you love them more than anything. But just the idea of, it was like he was trying to leech what little energy or what little I had left in me, kind of thing. And it was like this, my body just went into full blown, like, sympathetic nervous system, like fight or flight.
Wow.
And I was like living in that adrenaline state just constantly. So I went to my GP and I had a very open conversation with her, which took a lot. And it was, a very brave moment to admit that, you're not okay, and you're, trying to piece together your life, because you've got this baby and you want everything to be perfect, and you want to be super mom, and you want your baby, you've spent 9 months growing this human, going, they're only going to eat organic food and they're never going to watch a device, and I'm going to breastfeed them until they're 4, whatever it is. And it all kind of starts to come crashing down, and it's it's a really hard moment to admit and to go, yeah, stuff's not okay, and B, I don't want this to be my forever, because there's only one way this is going, and it's not good. And so I went into see a therapist, went to see a psychologist, and I think I came out of that time period with a much stronger sense of self, and being able to advocate for myself, which I think as women we're not great at sometimes. And to be able to say, I'm going to go and do this. Like, this isn't up for negotiation. I'm not asking your permission. I'm telling you that this is something I'm going to go and do.
And so Matt's your husband's name?
Yep.
Yeah, and so did you present that to him as, I'm going to do this? This is a non-negotiable.
Yeah, pretty. I like it. It's not like a flick of the switch and suddenly that's the way. That's the dialogue and those are the conversations. And I mean, obviously, like now, any anytime there's an inkling of a race or something like that, there's a conversation, and can we make it work? Is it a good
Yeah.
time of year? Blah, blah,
Yeah.
So, but I think there was definitely that sense of like, I don't want to feel like I can't share the things that I'm passionate about. And if I want you to be able to go and have all these amazing experiences and freedoms and whatever else, then if we're a partnership, then surely you should want the same for me. And I think I think it's a really easy place to get into as, especially as a mum, as a new mum, that we try and be everything to all people all the time. And we completely forget about the fact that we have everyone has a cup, and you can't pour from an empty cup. No. Sometimes things have to change. I've got friends that have got younger kids, and it's really intense, and they're not getting out for the runs that they need because the kid gets sick, and when the kid gets sick, then they get sick, and then the husband gets sick, and it all just goes around and around, and it all falls to the wayside. And that's really frustrating. But the thing that I will say to them is, like, I promise you, it comes back. You can still love running. You still get to go for a run when you can, but maybe signing up for 6 foot isn't in this year's plan or next year's plan, but it will come back. And so it's kind of having that, those conversations where you can be open and you can share what your dreams are, and not being afraid to say to somebody that you love, hey, I want to share something with you, and what I'm looking for in this conversation is your support. Because it's, it can be a confronting thing. I totally get it from a partner, and it works both ways. If someone turns around to you and says, oh yeah, I want to go and run the long course at Larapinta, next year, and it's a 4-day event, and so my training block is going to look like this for the next 6 months. That can be it's a big ask, because you're asking someone close to you to take on more load. And it's about saying, I'm happy to work it out, and I'm happy to have a conversation. And like, I've sat down with couples before to go, this is what this person wants to train for. Let's look at both of your schedules and figure out, what's possible. And again, that's, I guess, one of the benefits of having a coach. And especially I just think
a coach who understands, I guess, family and balance and business. And you've got a busy schedule. So, yeah.
And a very varied schedule as well. So, like, this week, for example, I'm going to have to I haven't told my coach yet, but I'm going to have to do my long run on Friday because the weekend's blown out with all the other things and whatever else. So, having that coach that understands what a weekend and what a week can look like, and having that variety, because there are some weeks when I will sit in an editing cave and only have one shoot. And so I can juggle my runs, I can get out during the day, whatever. And then there are other weeks where I'm, shooting for 4 days straight, and it's much, much harder. And so, I think for women, that mental load it's a lot. But I think, again, having these conversations is amazing, because it's just putting it out there that we're not asking you to go out and sign up for a miler, next week, but it's okay to have that little seed of a goal in your mind, and creating those spaces where you can have those conversations and you can ask questions, and what does it look like, and how might I get there? Because a miler for some people might be a 5-year plan, and
exactly,
and but it's about finding, I think the first step is have those conversations. Just be around, listening to a conversation like this, or listening to the Women's Collective running podcast, or a bunch of other ones that are out there, and just kind of finding that backing in yourself, like creating that little community for yourself, and then finding the little voice to go, I'd kind of like to do that, like something like that one day, maybe,
and I can imagine that sort of initial spark of an idea or a goal or a dream for a busy mum in particular might get snuffed out. Forget about that. That's stupid.
Because we snuff it out in ourselves.
Exactly.
It doesn't even make it to the conversational stage. It's snuffed out in our own brains till we got, there's no way, because you're in the thick of it. And you sometimes you need that person outside of it to be able to go, oh, like we can totally make this work. Like,
Yeah.
let's look at your weekly schedule. So my first road marathon that I ran, I was very fortunate in that I was on maternity leave at the time. So I ran my first marathon when my younger one was 6 months old, which is probably
Mm.
not necessarily what everyone should go and do.
Mm.
However, but I was on maternity leave with, one of my absolute closest friends in the entire universe.
Mm.
And we were both on maternity leave at the same time. And we tag team during the week. Like all of our training runs during the week were during the day. So like the husbands or anyone else had nothing, I'd watch her little girl and Finn and,
Wow.
and River, and then we'd swap over. And it would literally be like, right, you've done your intervals or whatever it is, and you high five, and then the other one goes out, and the kids play or nap or whatever it is, and we had
That's
this
really cool.
amazing structure.
Yeah.
And we were so fortunate, and she's who I blame for all of my running because she just sucks you in.
Right. Okay. Well, have to get her on one day. Yeah.
Well, she's done is so her first 100 was Surf Coast Century. So
Oh,
it's now,
cool.
and
Yeah.
I crewed her for it, and the weather was horrendous.
Ah, nice. Oh, that's classic. So, did you say that
Yeah,
was your youngest at 6 months old, or your eldest?
yeah. No, my youngest.
Youngest.
So Finn. Yeah. So my youngest now, he's 9, but when he
Yeah.
was 6 months old, I did my first marathon.
Okay. So you were running properly competitively through both uh, pregnancies and
Not
children,
through
or
pregnancies. So before I had Finn is when I kind
yeah.
of started running along the beach and
Hmm.
sunrise, and I did like a couple of city to surfs,
Yeah.
a half marathon. Then I had Finn. I ran into my pregnancy for as long as I felt comfortable,
Right.
and that's obviously a very contentious topic anyway.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
people really receive a lot of feedback for
Mm.
running pregnant. I'm a great believer in do it for as long as it feels good in your body, like anything.
Right. Yeah. So
Um,
this is sorry. The reason I asked that is because
yeah,
it's just another barrier in my mind, and
yep,
I'm a male, so
absolutely.
I don't really understand. But there's the teenage barrier of
Mm,
you know conformity and sport being competitive and
yep,
rebellion against sport. Then there's as you get older, there's pregnancy and birth and
yeah,
child rearing, which is a physical and mental.
yep.
It's huge.
Can we swear? Can we call it
Yeah.
a clusterfuck? Is that okay?
Clusterfuck. That's a good. Yeah, let's go with that. It's a physical and mental clusterfuck for how long? Like, how long do you need to? Because this is something my wife's going through now. She's a runner. She's
Yep,
a cyclist. She loves endurance sport, and she knows that if we have a child, that's going to be put on hold for
yep.
who knows how long.
However long, yeah.
However
And you
long.
know what? And there's no and the frustrating part of that is that there is no one size fits all answer, as I'm
Mm,
sure she's realised. And I think we live in a world where everything, give or take, most things I will say have some form of a solution, right? There's
mm,
either a video on YouTube that you can
yes.
watch that tells you how to do it, there's a person you can call, or there's a pill you can take.
Mm,
And we have created this incredible world that exists like that, except kids. And so for
yeah.
most of us, when you've lived your life up until your 20s, and you can be incredibly, I don't, sounds bad to say it like this, but like you get to be incredibly selfish up
Mm. Oh, you
until
do.
the moment. And I don't mean that in a you're such a
37 for
selfish
me. Still
person,
selfish. Yeah.
but but you get to your life is your oyster, right? Like you
Yeah.
get to make those decisions. You get to go away for work without really needing to think about it. It's a
Mm.
case of like, hey hun, I'm away from next Friday for 10 days. I'll
Hmm.
see you when I get back.
Yeah.
And very little kind of consideration needs to go into much else, which is amazing, right? Like
Hmm.
how lucky are we that we get to do that? And then you have kids, and obviously everything changes. And it's the probably the first time that for most of us we've experienced that prolonged period of I am at the absolute mercy of the unknown. And that's a really frightening and kind of can be like complete disempowering thought and
Mm.
experience for a lot of us, especially as the mum, because if you choose to breastfeed, then that's a sole source of nutrition for this thing that you have to keep alive.
Mm-hmm.
It's come out of you, he or she has come out of you in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, yeah.
And you've got the recovery of that.
Yeah.
You've grown it from a seed, and so your body has changed. And again, you are powerless. Having conversations with a friend of mine who's having her first bub in the next few weeks, and she's like, "Oh, no one told me about
Yeah.
this." I'm like, "Yeah, because if we did, you wouldn't do it."
Wow. Yeah.
So it's a lot, and you don't feel like yourself, and you feel like you've lost the essence of who you are, and you
Mm.
have you're powerless. Your body's completely changed. And again, going back to the social media thing, we've been inundated with what images, of images of celebrities and royal families coming out of the hospital the day after, looking exactly the same as they did, 9 months earlier or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. And I remember doing one of my first park runs after having River,
Mm.
and I have a body that when I have babies, I just put on weight. Like, I'm 5'2", which is 158 centimeters. Like, I'm
Mm.
short, but I
Mm.
just put on the kilos. It's just what happens. And that was a really, really hard time in my life.
Right.
I will say I did not enjoy being pregnant either time. And I'm a
Right.
big advocate for women being able to say that out loud.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I remember doing this first park run, and there's always like a little volunteer photographer, and they put the photos up on Facebook afterwards. And I was mortified. I
Oh, right. Yeah.
cried at the images of me being that much bigger
Mm.
post baby. It was like one of my first runs back, and it
And obviously a
was,
triggering thing based on your
oh,
past as well.
it
Yeah.
was huge, to the
Mm.
point where it was so bad, those feelings of how I felt about myself and seeing myself in that shape, which
Mm.
really wasn't that bad.
Mm.
But
Mm.
it was that bad that, as I kind of got quite involved in park run, and as a photographer, I'd go and volunteer and I'd take the photos. So they made me an admin so that I could upload the photos. I actually went back in time and went and in that feed and found those photos and deleted them
Oh,
out
wow.
of the
Yeah.
parkrun
Jeez.
newsfeed, because I wanted them gone, and I
Yeah.
was
Right.
that ashamed of what I looked like. Instead of being able to look back and go, I had a 10 week old, somewhere around there,
And you're running a
and
park run.
I was out there. I was moving.
Mm.
I was getting exercise. I was I was so focused on the physical, I'd lost that connection to what I was giving back to myself in that time.
Mm.
I'd got out of bed. I probably hadn't slept well the night before. I was up early. I was there. I showed up, and I was doing it. And that's
Yeah.
what I should have been able to focus on. And I was so consumed with what it looked like to other people who don't give a shit.
Exactly.
Like,
Well, that's true, but at the same time, I mean, it's social media, isn't it? It's like you do a park
100%.
run, you get put on the internet. It's like that
Yep.
didn't used to be a thing, and now it is a thing.
Yep.
And we do it. We post photos of every event,
Oh, absolutely.
every
And
time, because it's an awesome thing. But
yeah,
I guess we don't really think about body image and what people might think about themselves. And
and it's a very natural thing, right? Like, and it's not something that you can be too flippant about, because we all have that way we want to present to the world. And as a
mm,
photographer, I see it probably more than most people. The number of
mm,
people that will say to me, "Oh, I don't like having my photo taken," or don't take my
yeah, yeah,
photo," or "Is it a bad photo? Delete it if it's not a good photo."
yeah,
And I'm like, I'm a photographer. I've never taken a bad photo in my life. What are you talking
yeah,
about?
yeah.
And that's natural. But I think what we need to understand is, like, how do you see, especially in something like running, and the role that, like, that I chose to play by applying to be an ambassador for Surf Coast, is
Mm,
like, I want people to see past that. And it also is great because it challenges me. So, like, if I'm taking a selfie to put on my Instagram, it's like, oh no, that's not a nice smile, or that's a weird look I've
mm,
got on my face, and I'm going to take how many selfies does it take before you get the one that you then post? Or how many times do you record the audio to go on it? And
Yeah.
it's like, you know what? Maybe we should just put it out there and leave it. And if I can
And
make fun of myself a little bit and that makes other people feel comfortable,
And I must say,
great.
your reels that you've been producing for Surf Coast Century, they do embody that. It's sort of the imperfect. This is me. It's not the way
Mm.
I planned it to be, but here it is, and it's resonating so well with everyone who sees it. I've had emails coming
Oh,
in
thank
saying
you.
how great your content is because it's real. It's just like, oh yeah, that's Sophie, and
Yeah,
yeah, she's
yeah,
not as comfortable on the camera as she's not a polished AI robot. She's a real person
yeah,
doing her thing, and yeah, it's
yeah.
it's cool. So I think that's a good point. You're trying to help people and females in particular see through
Yeah.
the.
It doesn't, it's never going to be, it's not even a question of it doesn't have to be perfect. It's never going to
It's
be.
never going to be perfect. Yeah,
Like, it's never going to
yeah.
be. So why do we, we've created this world where, especially in social media, and again, a conversation I've had to have with my 13-year-old,
Mm,
especially around the body image stuff, is I need you to understand that when someone chooses to post something, that is, they are choosing to post something that reflects them at their absolute best in that moment.
yeah.
It's curated. Someone has
Mm-hmm.
made a very conscious choice to share this moment, whether it's a still or it's video, with the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And you have to take that on board. And I'm the same. Like, of course, we all are. And I think if we can have that little bit of just sanity around social media, it
Mm-hmm.
can be a really powerful tool for teenagers, for adults, for women, for men, whatever. Because it's not about saying, oh, everyone should post everything, because no, of course not. But can we use it in a way that is inspiring and informative and motivational, and understand its limits a little bit,
Mm, mm,
and understand the pinch points of the impact of AI, of user generated content, and
mm.
the deep fakes and all that kind of stuff. Like, yes, there's a lot of inherent risk.
Yeah.
um, and as you know, I've recently lost my social media to the meta
Yeah.
gods, and I'm kind of starting again, and there's a lot of
Which
mindset
seems
training.
crazy given what you've just said,
Yeah,
and uh, from my perspective, you're such a positive influence on social media, and they banned you, but then like the AI deep fakes are
yeah,
still up there running.
yeah.
So
But
it's
it's the AI that's done it, right?
yeah,
Like, and it's,
exactly.
and it's all kind of coming out in the news now. Is really interesting how much, how many other people have been affected by it, and it is hundreds of thousands of people and
Okay,
businesses and
so
stuff,
it's a
which
recent
is,
update they've done or something that's just
it's AI, using AI to kind of mine sweep accounts and kind of red flag anything that could potentially be something untoward or inappropriate
yeah,
or
yeah.
break their community guidelines and stuff. And so therefore there's just this like list, however many kilometers long, of people who are sitting there with disabled accounts, and people, hopefully humans, having to sit there and go through those accounts one by one, going, yep, that's okay, yep, that's okay, yep, that's okay, and hopefully switch them back on. So yeah, I think it's really hard, and it's definitely made me realize that it's like, how do you communicate with people, and how do you have that wide reach and have those conversations without the risk of everything being
Being
taken
banned,
away,
being
being banned.
deplatformed. Yeah,
And and I read something the other day that was like, yeah, you can't just own the house, you have to own the land.
yeah.
And we are, unfortunately, when it comes to Meta, they own the land, they own the
Mm.
platform. And so it's an interesting one to kind of see like where that's going to go,
Have
whether
you
it,
got an email list?
for Instagram.
Just yeah, I know email, like collecting emails of people who want to be updated by you. Like, do you have somewhere that they can sign?
Yeah,
Because that is like owning the land in terms of digital.
yes.
You know,
Yeah, that's a good point. No, I don't. Send me an email. No,
yeah,
I have, obviously, like, my photography clients.
yeah,
That's obviously all very different.
hmm,
But yeah, from the running side of things, no, because it's just been such an organic growth for me.
yeah, yeah,
And I feel like this kind of, my Instagram started just as that, like it does for most people, just a
hmm,
personal diary and a personal record of my own journey.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and that's where the curation can be really great, because you do choose to then kind of show what those highlights are, instead of having to scroll back through 17,000 photos in your phone, in your photos in your phone. So it was that kind of one place wonder. And so the conversations and I guess for me, kind of stepping into this new part of what I hope to be something that grows with my, for my business, with female participation, with athlete well-being, is, it was this really organic growth. So I don't have anything that's that
Yeah,
kind of,
no, it
here's
makes
my
sense.
people.
We'll
So
put your most current Instagram, because you've got a new one now. We'll put that in the bottom
yeah,
when we post this up. I suppose we should probably wrap it up pretty soon, because I've been keeping you here all morning.
no,
But
it's awesome.
I mean, we've covered so many topics. I suppose the big mental model that I've got since talking to you is that there is a lot of barriers to female
Mm,
participation in sport. There's the
yeah.
teenage barriers, there's the pregnancy and young children barriers, and there's the mental load of having a family and a business and a career and all the
Mm,
things that I guess the pressures we put on women in
yeah.
society these days. There's a lot. There's a
Yeah.
lot there.
And I think we should probably note in that it's not necessarily just the mums, right? Because there are plenty of women out there who, haven't had children yet,
That's
or
true.
don't want to and don't have
That's
that
true.
journey. And so what they've kind of done is, it's like, I feel like a lot of women who are, maybe sitting around, in their kind of 30s and stuff, and maybe they haven't had children yet, or they don't want children because they want their career. And so
Mm,
there's a different pressure that they've put on themselves, or society has placed on them, in that's their focus, and that's
mm,
their everything, and that's their mental load. So, in the same, kind of in the same breadth as mums and things like that, I think you have to recognize that, women that haven't chosen that path, or it's not something that's available to them for whatever means,
mm,
is that, there's still a load, and there's still
mm-hmm.
that they're still impacted by those same barriers, but it's just a different, it's a different side to the same coin, kind of thing.
Very true. And I'm just thinking out loud again, but a lot of my friends or even my wife who don't have children, they still have that, it's almost like a innate nurturing facility that I don't have, that
Mm,
they worry about all the people in their lives, and they're always trying
yeah.
to help, and they've got that mental load anyway.
Yep.
So that's
Yep.
interesting.
It's
And
still
I think
there.
I mentioned to you the other day, I read about a thing called man keeping, which is
Yeah.
a
That's
thing which I had
fascinating.
not heard of, but it was an article somewhere about how young women, a lot of them they're giving up dating.
Yeah.
Heterosexual women are giving up dating because
I don't want to deal with
men.
it.
What's that? I don't want
They
to keep
just
a
don't want
man
to deal
because,
with it.
yeah, men. Well, we as a generalization again are not very good at emotional, talking about our emotions to our mates. So then it comes back
Mm,
to your significant other, and you dump all your load on them, and then they have to, make sure
yep.
you're okay, and
Yep.
it's another mental load. So
Yep. Absolutely.
it's an
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
point you make about it's not just mums. So yeah, so there are barriers. I mean, there's barriers to everyone, but in particular, females.
For this, yeah, for the point of this conversation, yes, women.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the whole topic of this. But at the same time, sport is such a positive influence, especially in a world where there's excess and there's comfort and
Yep.
there's so for the purpose of this conversation, sport is good, and doing
Yep.
something is good. So then, what would you say to? I guess most people listening to this will already be in this world of endurance sport, but maybe they're not.
Hmm.
They're worried about. Maybe they've done the trail running series, for example. They're
Mm,
thinking about moving up to an ultra, maybe
yep.
the Circuit Century 50. What would you say to them if they're thinking, oh, I just can't do it, I'm not fit enough, I'm too busy, I've got my kids, I've got my
Yep.
husband, I've got, whatever else it is. How would
Yep.
you suggest they sort of tackle that?
my my first response to those kind of questions is, well, you're not with that attitude.
Yeah, yeah, good.
Because it's true, because it's, you have to, I really like the mindset is a really important part of my training, and I think how I try and communicate with people, and how I raise my kids, and the conversations I have with my athletes. And you'll know from being out on a long ride or a endurance event that mindset is everything, and it makes or breaks. And being able to recognize, when you're in a bit of a slump or whatever, you kind of go, oh, don't feel great right now, but I know I'll feel good. And I think that same mindset applies to people who sit there and go like, I'd love to do it, but I never could. And if we can trick our brains to thinking, I am the type of person that can train for an ultra marathon. It's the semantics of it is a really powerful tool. And for someone that I think is maybe, maybe it's in the back of their brain and it just seems like it's too big. What's the harm in having a conversation? And by the same logic, with some idiot like me that would TED talk you into signing up.
I think that's what you need sometimes.
That's it. Like I've got a friend of mine who's another school mum, and she'd been talking to one of her friends about, like, I wish I could be a runner and I never would, and I don't have time, and blah, blah. And her friend turned around and went, right, I've signed you up to pub. That's it, you're in. So now you have no choice but to train. I was like, that's a great trick. I was like, I just need to get a few like free entries for some races, and I'm just gonna start signing people up.
That's classic.
I think it's about working out what your personal barriers or concerns are, and getting finding it in yourself to have that outside influence, like opening up to those conversations, and chatting to someone who's done the race or someone from the events company. I remember signing up to run Larapinta, which I unfortunately haven't been able to do because we went through COVID and then I got a stress fracture and blah, blah. Next year. There's always next year. There's always another time to have a race. And I remember being really scared about, God, I'm going to run like back-to-back 4 days, and, you're going to do 30 Ks one day and a marathon the next day. And oh my God. And I remember emailing somebody, one of the team there, and it was probably just some like verbal diarrhea of like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And I want to say maybe an Anna. Am I making that up?
Annie?
Annie? Yes, Annie. Writing back and being like, it's okay. Take a breath.
Annie's great. She doesn't work with us anymore, but she is a great runner. She's done a number of times.
Yes, and it was just having that conversation. And a lot of the times, if I'm trying to research a run or an event or somewhere to run potentially, you don't necessarily know where to start.
No,
but you just have to start.
Yeah.
So it could be that someone has a conversation with a friend and goes, oh, I really want to be able to run park run. I want to do this, that, and the other. And they go, oh yeah, well, I don't know how you would do that, but I know my friend so-and-so who does, or I've heard of this couch to 5K program, or, I'm going to be down in Anglesey on the 13th of September, and I'd really love to kind of go and see what all this running stuff is about. Go along. Go and volunteer, go and be a part of it, go and be, the idiot in the room that knows the least, because that idiot in the room is the most powerful person in that room, because they stand to learn the most and to grow the most from being in those, in those environments.
That's a really good point, actually. Just have the courage to look a bit silly. You won't look silly, but just put yourself out there. You've almost just got to move forwards, step forwards into it, and and
it's those baby steps.
Yeah, sod the self-doubt and the worry and take a leaf out of those blokes who apply for the CEO job without any experience.
That's it, 100%. And I've got so many ideas of stuff I want to do. And you're so right with something you said earlier about, the people that go to that events, or, and go to the women in trail panels at events, or, listen to these kind of podcasts and whatever else. Like, yes, they are people who are already in the room. They're already, whether it's the partner of someone that's doing the event or they're doing it themselves or whatever. But I think as women in this space, the other side of it is, yes, women who are thinking about it, or women who have the inkling and don't know where to start or whatever, they need to take that little step forward. But also, as women who are already in this space and have that lived experience, it's also our responsibility to go out to them. So we're somehow meeting halfway. So
everyone's got friends who look at them like they're crazy. My wife definitely, and I do too, but a lot of friends just say, "Oh, I could never do that. You're what?
yeah,
You're crazy. You're amazing. You do all these things." And
come along with me.
come
What is
along,
it going to take? What is it going to take? So my sister-in-law, who, I love her beyond measure. She's one of the best human beings, and I'm so lucky to have her in my life. And like the other day, I saw her going for a run. I was like, Sarah, are you running? Like, oh my God. And she was like, yeah, but I'm never going to run with you. I'm like, why not?
yeah,
So, oh, you're being
that's a
too fast and
common
whatever
thing.
else.
That's a
Absolutely.
common thing.
And I would say to anyone, because I've got friends who are much faster and like same as you, like we've all got that person that's that step above us, further along in their journey, faster, is training for a different race. So that, if you're training for a road marathon and you're aiming for a PB, I do not expect to be running Sydney Marathon with you in 3 weeks' time, because I'm doing it as a trail run, as a training run. So you go and do you. But my message to anyone that I've ever spoken to about, like, oh yeah, I'm up to running 10Ks now, but I will never run with you. What would it take for you to feel comfortable to come and run with me? Because I will run at any pace, not fast, slow. I will run at any pace. I will hike every uphill. I will walk every 500 meters with you, if that's what it takes for you to feel comfortable, because I am just happy to be sharing this space with you.
That's
The
cool.
end.
And that's a selfless thing from your perspective as well, because it means your training run isn't going to be your limited time to go running is probably going
Yeah.
to be slower than you would have otherwise gone, or shorter, or so. I think having that almost collaborative approach to trail running. We're not
It
most of us
is.
are not elite athletes, so like
Yeah,
let's get over ourselves and invite the newbies in
absolutely.
and go for
Yeah.
one session a week with them. Like it's
Because it's one session where, you should have been running 40 minutes easy or doing a 10K undulating over hills. In a something like Surf Coast, there are hills, there is sand, there are times when you're going to be walking. So actually going out with someone who's going to slow you down and maybe, make you walk the hills because that's what they need, that's actually not bad training either. Like
probably good for you. Yeah, yeah.
it's
We're all
actually
probably
probably
going
good
too hard
because
too often. Yeah.
that's it. So, what a cool way. And, like, again, we're human beings. We search for connection. We're always looking, everyone needs a why. And some of the most rewarding and amazing and most memorable experiences of, looking at, say, events or training runs I've done with friends or whatever, is when when I've had the absolute privilege to be there for somebody else. And when I did Westmax Monsters, which was on the Larapinta Trail as well, but not your event.
Yeah.
And there was I caught up to a guy at like the 30K mark, and we ran the next 100 kilometers together from there to the end. And we were with each other in the night, which was amazing, because otherwise I would have had a tanty on the side of a mountain and waited for someone to come and get me. And we got to like the second day, and he ran out of water, got heat stroke, and pretty much hit the decks, or did hit the decks on the trail. And we got him to the next. We were only about 2Ks out from the next aid station. Got him support, and got him sorted out. And I was already with my TED Talk speech of like, you've done amazing. You don't like, this is a really hard freaking thing. You've done your best. Blah blah. Like that's it. Like game over. And I looked at him and was like, Ben, what do you want to do? And he was like, I really want to finish. I was like, okay, we finish. So the next, whatever it was, 40Ks or something like that, was not about me and my finish time anymore. It was about getting him to the finish line.
Yeah, that's
and
cool.
that was just, there was so much more purpose in it.
Yeah.
And that's all we're here for, right? Like we're all human beings. I don't care
So
where
true.
whether.
And trail
Yeah.
running in particular, like we see that at our trail events compared to
Yeah.
I spoke to you about this the other day, compared to even bike events, we're trying to get more, collaborative, but trail running events is something else. It's like there's one big tribe trying to get everyone across the line. Everyone's
Yep.
yeehaw and yahooing, and it's really cool. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's this really cool environment where you realize that it's, it's about what that particular person can do. And
Mm.
whether they're first or last, like the cheers should be the same, because what that person has gone out and accomplished on that day is incredible. And it's this culmination of, like, the I always say it's that the event is the victory lap, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly. Yep.
the thing that we should be celebrating is the months, and in some cases years, of training that this person has put in to get to this point. And that's the time that you learn and grow as a human being.
Mm.
And that's the stuff that is going to catapult into that next phase in your life, right? That's the stuff that you learn from,
Yeah.
and that we get to reflect back on. And sometimes it doesn't always go to plan and whatever else, but you're still out there, you still gave it everything you had on that day, and
Exactly.
that's
It's a journey,
incredible.
as cliche as that sounds. It's the
Oh,
journey to the start line that's the main thing you remember, even though
absolutely.
they might not have nailed every session and might not have hit your goal
Yeah,
times or whatever it is. It's just
100%.
getting out there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Sophie. It's been incredible. I did want to
Thank
ask you
you.
about what we can do as an events company to, I guess, be more encouraging to female participants. We'll probably run out of time for today, but I will definitely quiz you about that, because it is something
Yeah, yeah,
we're trying to do more of. We've got a whole female gender equity program in place that we're
yeah. Amazing.
trying to build on. But it sounds like it's something you're very passionate about. We love it. We love seeing
Yep.
more women participating, and we're pleased to see that Surf Coast Century this year is about almost 50-50 split, male
It's
female,
awesome.
which is the best it has been yet. So great to have you involved, and can't wait to see you in September.
Yeah, we'll see you in, what is it, 4.5 weeks or something?
It's not far away, is it? It's getting.
Great.
How's your training going, by the way?
Yeah, good. I had I've got a bit of an ITB thing as a part of the kind of fallout from Cape to Cape. I think
Yep.
just being in such cold conditions, like the
Yep.
cold, and hormones. Like, I'm 41, and I'm
Hmm.
kind of just started on hormone replacement therapy, or
Oh
menopause
wow.
replacement
Yep.
therapy. So I'm
Yep.
on hormones now,
Okay.
which is another barrier to women, is that you go through the
Yeah.
child
Well, there's
rearing years, and
menopause, isn't it?
then you kind of hit the perimenopause phase, which
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
last 10 years. So I'm on like estrogen gel and progesterone
Wow.
tablets and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But obviously your hormones have a massive impact on soft tissue.
Hmm.
And so when everything drops off, you're more susceptible to injuries. Everything gets a lot tighter. So I think a combination of that. So I hadn't started the hormones when I did Cape to
Mm.
Cape. So this is a very recent thing for me. And the estrogen um, gel, I think, is the part of it that helps with like your soft tissue and everything. So
Right.
running in super cold conditions, super wet, um, lots of sand running, so it shortens your stride. So you're more
Mm.
prone to, think your gait's not quite right. So my ITB got really, really tight, and it's just been a bit niggly over the last kind of month since. It's definitely getting better. I'm seeing a physio. I'm having needling, and I've kind of my next reel is like the stupid amount of work I have to do pre-run to be able to go
Oh,
for a run.
I feel you
Um,
there. I'm the
yeah,
same. The older you get, the
yeah.
more bloody free
Oh, you're not even.
activations you have to do.
Oh, absolutely. Like the massage gun comes out, the foam
Yeah,
roller, the
yeah, the
stretching, the
bands.
mobility,
Yeah.
glute, posterior chain activation. So I will be fine, and I'm going into Surf Coast as a, like, my mentality is, it's I want it to be an amazing event. I want to be there to represent that female participation, and to bring as many women along the way as I can, whether it's like on the day because women are signing up because of
Hmm.
the messaging and the conversations, or whether it's post and it's for next year they want to be involved. That's really important to me. As a coach, I don't advocate for running through injuries, and so it's definitely a delicate balance, but I've worked out what works, how to manage it, so I've got a good process.
Hmm.
And I guess the A type personality in me is like, this for me is a Western States qualifier. So quick
Yep.
plug for Surf Coast being the
Awesome.
Western States qualifier.
Awesome. Yeah.
So all I need is under 17 hours. And so I feel like that's that's very much achievable.
Yeah.
It's a very different course to like a UTA. You don't have as much elevation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so look, I'm really excited. It's going to be the first time that the whole family's come with me. So
Oh, cool.
we're booked. We've got Airbnb booked for all four of us. It'll be the first time that Matt crews me.
Yep.
So that'll
Nice.
be a question mark.
Shout
We've
out
got
to the
to do
husbands,
yeah,
supporting.
get the boys out there. And it'll be the first time that my boys have seen me race and finish a race.
That's unreal. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah.
I can't wait to meet you and the family in the flesh. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be so good. Can't wait. So we'll be down there on I think Thursday we get there, and then we've got Friday to chill, and then Saturday's game time.
Unreal. You have to drop into the
Yeah,
RA offices and say hello on
yeah,
Thursday.
we will.
It'd be
Yeah,
really
yeah,
good.
we will.
Nice one.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so
Easy.
much. I'll leave it
Thank
there.
you.
But yeah, awesome to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. Sorry to take up so much of your day.
No, it's been good. I'm going to pause the recording there, but I am bursting for the toilet, so I'm going to rush off. That has been amazing, though. I can't wait to listen to this again, and I'm sure there's bits that I'm going to want to dive deeper in. I could talk to you all day. It is a really fascinating
Oh,
topic,
thank
and
you.
I really appreciate